Well, hello, my friends. It's good to be with you again, here with another analysis. I am Christian Watson, of course. As always, your host forever and eternally. So, if you are a new subscriber here, thank you so much for doing that. If you're not, please consider. If you want to help us out, please like, subscribe, share, subscribe. If you find this content to be agreeable, if you don't like it, hold your peace. But if you do, then please, I urge you and beseech you to do that. But if you are a fan of mine, or you've been coming back to my videos constantly, you may notice a little bit of a change. So this border I have around my videos is different because I wanted something different, I didn't want to have a talking points panel where the listener had to divide their attention between me and the words on the screen, which don't really reflect the entirety of what I was trying to say. It seemed to be very sophomoric and almost as if I was condescending my listener. And I'm not trying to condescend you. I'm trying to walk with you in this human journey together, arm in arm, mind in mind, geared towards the truth, geared towards our higher selves, geared towards preservation of rights, geared towards everything which allows us as human beings to operate. We can't do that effectively if you feel condescended. So that's why this format is different. But, we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to go good, though. So, our subject today is the student loan cancellation talk. So, there is a article out that I'm pulling up right now from money.com in which explains how the Democratic Party and a lot of the left are trying to capitalize upon Joe Biden's willingness to potentially cancel or abridge a lot of student loan debt, a lot of outstanding student loan debt. I won't read the entire article to you, but I will put it in the description down below. But the entire premise is this, that there are people who are belabored and beset with economic gloom and the specters of potential financial destitution, and these people are typically poor and middle class, and they need the all-healing hand of government to come and alleviate their financial blotches, just to burn off the financial boils with that government assistance. And so the argument that many conservatives or libertarians put against the idea of canceling student loan debt or student loan debt forgiveness is that it's costly, it's not effective, it raises prices in other areas. That's the argument they typically use. And these arguments are fine, people. I don't mind them, but I find them far too mundane for my tastes. I find them to be very lacking. They're lacking in both a substance of something deeper, and they're lacking in a proper understanding of the moral foundations of the United States, which are also confirmed by a set of laws external to our government. You have to understand, whenever you ask the government to get involved in something, you are immediately calling or allowing them to be critiqued in light of what they're supposed to be actually doing. But unfortunately, the argument is almost always, well, that's not the proper role of government. Go beyond that. You're correct. We have to go deeper than that, though. The reason canceling student loan debt is so dangerous is because it is highly unethical and a violation of natural rights, as per the video title. Don't believe me? Let me walk through this with you. So, Robert Nozick, who is a very influential philosopher, he was the president of the American Philosophical Association. Here he is right here, very handsome man, very suave man, very intelligent man. He wrote several works, the most famous of which is Anarchy, State, and Utopia, one of my favorite political treatises ever. It was one of the most defining treatises for libertarianism and in contemporary political philosophy. I swear, there's not. It was a direct response to John Rawls' entire take on justice, which Nozick didn't really like. But it was also a constitution almost for libertarianism. It laid out principles of libertarianism in a free society in a very systemic, logically rigid way, as opposed to a way that might have relied on divinity or might have relied on something that was sort of flowery or airy. It wasn't a poetic prose. It wasn't something like that. It was much more systemic and logical and formulaic. So if that is your forte, then I encourage you to check it out. But in Anarchy, State, Utopia, Nozick stipulates a proper way of exchanging goods and resources between either people or institutions, really people, because people constitute institutions. And so Nozick says that if I obtain something voluntarily and which makes it legitimate, and I give it to you, and you accept it in a voluntary fashion, there is now a chain of legitimacy between me and you, which says your possession of what I just gave you is ethical. It is correct. It is in conjunction with rights. So the implication is, if you get something involuntarily through force or coercion or theft, it is naturally a violation of rights because it does not happen through a voluntary exchange. So ethicality for Nozick is imposed upon a situation entirely through voluntary exchanges. Let's go deeper. When you have these compacts in which you exchange these things voluntarily and thus they are ethical, you also have instances in which conditions may arise. So let's say you're not giving something entirely to someone. Let's say that you are giving something to someone with conditions. Okay, I'm going to give this to you, but if I give this to you, you're going to give it back to me, or you're going to repay me within X amount of time. Because these things have conditions too. Nozick understood this. And the conditions are actually very integral to property rights as well. So, if you labor under a certain condition, labor under a certain contract with someone that you voluntarily and willfully accepted, and then you proceed to try to supersede your agreement by the force of government, you are violating their rights. In the context of student loan cancellation, forgiveness, or in all reality, it's not really forgiveness, it's damnation. It's damnation to an inferior point of your human being, dishonesty and deceitfulness. It's not forgiveness, it's damnation is what it is. But we'll operate under the modern terminology. Student loan forgiveness violates the rights of the lender by telling the lender that their agreement with you, which has the assent of natural law, the laws upon which are external to government, and upon which government is predicated upon, it tells them that the government will willfully violate natural law and thus render every contract they do in the future potentially obsolete. It's a violation of rights. And rights violations are bad, well, because they violate rights. They're bad because they violate rights. And so, beyond this thing being costly or ineffective or whatever the heck, we have to understand that rights are those conditions and those rules which enable us to live moral lives, which enable us to live life in general. Rights are literally the life essence of our being. And if you violate my rights, especially my property rights, because if I don't have property, I can't operate in this world in an efficient manner or in a safe manner, and therefore I have a higher chance of dying. If I don't have my property rights, as Locke said in Section 6 that property rights are directly linked with freedom. Property rights actually come before, or it complements every other right, life and liberty and held possessions. It complements everything within Locke's sort of framework. Property rights are very important. And if the government can just come in and invalidate lenders' conditions and contracts, then my goodness, you're putting everyone in a very precarious state. So before you go out and make the argument, well, it's costly. It is costly. But there is, as Bastiat said, things that are seen and unseen. There is a moral cost, and there is an economic cost. And conservatives choose to focus on the economic cost far more than the moral cost. So next time you see someone yelling at the rooftops to cancel their student debt, think about what you're doing to the lender, and more importantly, think about what you are doing to compacts of integrity, honesty, and trust that the American economic system are built upon. Think about the precedent you're setting that could harm them and harm the exercise of our freedom in a vivacious, uninhibited, and truthful way. Think on it. As always, my friends, I love you, and please stay pensive.